In this video, we will answer a few questions about parallel lines that are being cut by a transversal. So here we have these two parallel lines, and these lines that are going across are called the transversals. Let's zoom in and take a look at a few things. Okay, we're told that the measure of angle 9 is 80. So that means this is 80 right here. Now, all of the angles that are in this position are called corresponding angles. So this angle at 9 and the angle here at 13, they are both 80. See how they're both in the upper left hand corner? And this is in the upper left hand corner, so they are both 80. Now, these two angles right here together make a straight line. Together they form a 180 degree angle. It's a straight line. So if angle 9 is 80, I know that angle 10 must be 100. All right, because again they have to add up to 180 degrees. Okay, so now again, corresponding angles. This is in the upper right hand corner. This is in the upper right hand corner. So these are corresponding. You know what? I should change colors. So if this is 100, this is also 100. They're in the same position. Okay, but now switch your brain and look at this straight line right here. This is also 180 degrees. Okay, so if this is 100 up here, then this must be 80 down here. Or, you know what, an even easier way to look at it, whenever you have angles that are formed by intersecting lines, these angles that are across from each other are called vertical angles. And vertical angles are always equal. So if this angle is 80, then this angle will also be 80. They're vertical angles. Well, these angles are vertical angles. Okay, so they're going to be equal. So if this is 80, then this is going to be 80. All right, if this is 80, then this is going to be 80. Maybe I shouldn't be covering up all these numbers. So you can quickly see all of the 80s and 100s that get filled in. Similarly, we are told that the measure of angle 5 is 55 degrees. So this is 55 degrees right here. Okay, now vertical angles are equal, so that means this angle 8 is also 55. So let's fill that in. Now, angle 5 and angle 1 are corresponding angles. See how they are both in the upper left hand corner? All right, this is in the upper left, this is in the upper left. So these are going to be the same. They're called corresponding angles. So this is 55. And then these are vertical angles, the 1 and the 4. So this is 55. So anytime they give you one angle, they are really giving you 4 angles. Okay, but then we can get the rest of the angles because of supplementary. These two angles right here have to add up to 180. So if I do 180 minus 55, that should give me the other angle. So 180 minus 55. So that's 125. So that means this is 125. Now these are vertical angles, so this is 125. These are corresponding angles. Okay, see how this is in the lower left and this is in the lower left? These are corresponding angles, so this will be 125. Okay, and then these are vertical angles, so this is 125. Alright, now we are ready to answer some of these questions. So, which angle measures are correct? Check all that apply. Okay, let me see how much of this I can fit in my picture. I think I got them all. Okay, Is the measure of angle 2 125? Yes, it is. Check. Is the measure of angle 3 55? Nope, it's 125. Is the measure of angle 8 55? Yes, it is. There's 55 right there. Check. Is the measure of angle 12 100? Nope, that's 80. So, Is the measure of angle 14 100? Yep, there it is. It's 100. Check. Is the measure of angle 16 equal to 80? Yep, there it is. All right, let's see how we did. Kabam! So look, notice how I just filled in everything and then I answered the questions. I recommend that strategy to you. Just fill in everything you can and then answer the questions. On this next one, we are supposed to find the value of x. All right, and we've got this 115 degrees down here. So let's see what we can do. If this is 115 degrees, let's find all the things that are 115 degrees. Well, this and this, these will be corresponding angles. See how they are both in the lower right hand side, and looking at this group of 4, this is in the lower right hand side. So they are corresponding angles, so they should be the same. So that means this is 115. Now, see how these two angles are side by side. Okay, together these two angles make a straight line. In other words, they have to add up to 180 degrees. So we can make an equation like this. The 5x plus 5 plus the 115, they have to add up to 180 degrees. All right, these two angles together make a straight line. Together they make 180 degrees. So now it's just a matter of solving this for x. So I'll keep the 5x, combine my like terms. That's 120. Okay, subtract 120. So that's going to give us that 5x is equal to 60. And then divide both sides by 5. And that's going to give us x equals 12. So we were supposed to find the value of x. So this should be it right here. All right. Okay, so on this problem we just need to fill in the last reason in this tiny little proof. They mention a couple properties here. I need to make sure you know what these properties mean. The transitive property is the one that says, I better put it over here. So the following is the transitive property. I need a little bit of space. The transitive property is the one that works like a chain. If A is equal to B and B is equal to C, then A is equal to C. That's the transitive property. The symmetric property is the one where you're just saying if A equals B, then B is equal to A. So you're just writing it backwards. Okay, vertical angles. All right, let's talk about vertical angles. Vertical angles are like this. All right, when lines intersect, they form vertical angles, and vertical angles are congruent. Okay, and supplementary angles, the definition of supplementary angles is they add up to 180. Okay, so maybe if I had two angles that were side by side, if this were angle 1 and this were angle 2, I could say something about the definition of supplementary angles. They add up to 180 degrees. So one of these four is going to be the reason. So let's see what they have up above here. So they said angle 2 is congruent to angle 3, and then angle 2 is congruent to angle 6. So then angle 3 is congruent to angle 6. Alright, that sounds a little bit like the transitive property. Right now I'm leaning towards the transitive property. Okay, let's look at the other properties. The symmetric property. Symmetric property, all we can do is switch the two statements around backwards. So if they say, okay, if 2 is equal to 6, then 6 is equal to 2. That would be the symmetric property. They didn't say that, so it's not the symmetric property. What about vertical angles? This last statement says angle 3 is congruent to angle 6. Well, here's angle 3 and here's angle 6. They are not vertical angles, so it can't be the vertical angle theorem. What about the definition of supplementary angles? The previous step doesn't say anything about adding up to 180 or anything like that. So it really definitely can't be the others. So I'm going to go ahead and go with the transitive property. Now let's see if I can make it fit the pattern that I said. Now they said 2 is congruent to 3. So we have angle, whoops. Alright, I'm going to have to finesse it a little bit. But they said angle 2 is congruent to angle 3. And then they said angle 2 is congruent to angle 6. This is the one I'm going to have to finesse a little bit. Okay, because then they said angle 3 is congruent to angle 6. Okay, just to make this flow nicely as the transitive property, I really need to switch this one around the other way. Instead of saying 2 is congruent to 3, I'm going to say angle 3 is congruent to angle 2, which is really the same thing. So now it says if 3 is congruent to 2 and 2 is congruent to 6, then 3 is congruent to 6. The first one is congruent to the last one. So that would be a nice transitive property. I did have to tweak it a little bit, but the rest of them are definitely wrong. So that's my guess. Boom, transitive property. Okay, the last problem is very similar. We have a proof and we're supposed to fill in one of the reasons. So we are given that we have two parallel lines cut by a transversal. And then suddenly they're saying angle 6 is congruent to angle 2. So here's angle 6 and here's angle 2. Well, why would they be congruent? They would be congruent because they are corresponding angles. See how they're both in the upper right hand position? They're corresponding angles. So that is the corresponding angles theorem. Okay, so that's going to be the answer right there. Alright, now let's briefly talk about the other theorems. If they say alternate interior angles, that would have been the answer if they had given us, for example, angle 4 and angle 5. These are alternate interior angles. What about vertical angles? We talked about this a moment ago. If they gave us angles like angle 1 and angle 4, that would be the vertical angle theorem. Okay, alternate exterior angles. So these angles are interior angles. All right, these angles like 1 and 2 and 70 and 7 and 8 are exterior angles, inside, between the lines, and outside. So if they gave us angles like 1 and 8, then it would be alternate exterior angles. Okay, so those are the rest of the choices, but this was the correct answer.